All right, good afternoon. Today we're going to talk a little bit about some of the review of some of the soils things that we've been learning so far this semester. A couple things from the book we're going to have right now, a little fun with maps, and then I'm going to have a couple of other presentations that'll be placed on here along with this that kind of continue summarizing what it is I hope you take away from what we're working on. First, for a little fun with maps, we'll see if we can get our other webcam up and running here. Have a look. So, one of the things that you learned in our Managing Wisconsin Soils book is about soil forming factors and how that impacts the soil resource that you have either in your farm now or if you're still looking for a farm, that what could impact how you go about deciding on a piece of property. All right, well, right out of chapter 1, of course, we're talking about soil formation and classification. We'll see that there were, you'll recall, 5 soil forming factors. Parent material, the climate, living organisms, topography, and time. And we're going to take a little look at how those impact us in this region of southern Wisconsin. Parent materials, of course, that's what the soil formed in. So whether it was in this area of Wisconsin, we have kind of 2 major groupings, the bedrock, the natural bedrock that is part of the earth, or there was glacial functions above that. And depending on where you're at on a line either side of the driftless area in western part of the district or western part of Wisconsin, or in the glaciated part of eastern part of Wisconsin, that will definitely affect the kind of soils and the topography that you have. Next one, next factor was climate. Let's see where you're getting at. Yeah, climate. And that, of course, is in general is going to be looking at regionally, we all have a similar climate, but you can have very different climates even within feet of each other, depending on the juxtaposition of the land, if it's facing north, south, east, west, whether it's very hilly, whether how the wind blows across that, the amount of precipitation that goes in, gets absorbed into the land, how wet the soil is. Living organisms, that's the plants and animals and fun stuff that lives within our soil. That makes a big difference on the types of soils. Our topography is going to make a big difference, whether you're on a slight, gentle slope, the direction of the slope, big steep slopes, 25% slopes, that's all going to make a big difference. And then, of course, time. Well, a big factor in the time that the soils have had around here, again, is the glaciation. And the amount of time that some of the soil forming processes of weathering have had to take place. A little bit of fun with maps. As we mentioned, you had the Bedrock Geology of Wisconsin map in your book. In this area of the state where we're located in southern Wisconsin, Bedrock Geology shows this little line here, right along here, these little dots. Just going to focus. That is the end of the glaciated area. This area here is what we call the driftless area. It was never glaciated, so the parent materials that are going to be a part of that are partly the loess cap, that was wind-blown materials that came back from the outwash of the glaciers, and then the type of bedrock that is there. And the type of bedrocks are sandstones and limestones that are over the top of each other, layers and layers of that. And that will make a big difference, though, on exactly what you have in your soils and exactly the topography that you have. The sandstones, if you drive west in Wisconsin, you can recognize the sandstone ridges because they're really sharp ridge tops that pretty typically are not farmed because they're not very big and they're very, very steep hillsides. The limestones are much bigger, broader shouldered hills, and they're going to have usually farmed in a very different way, where you can farm the tops of those rather than maybe the hillsides or the valleys. And of course, the other part of parent material in this part of the state, and Wisconsin in general, is going to be that related to glaciers. This, again, this brown line is the moraine, the end moraine, which goes right through western Dane County, actually right through western part of Madison. As you drive over, if you were to drive across Madison and go across the UW campus, you go down a hill that is the end moraine of where the glaciers stopped advancing. Then the rest of the materials up here in this area are going to be parent materials are going to be directly related to glacial deposits. And that'll change quite a bit. It makes quite a bit of difference in the types of soils that you have, which then gets us back to our soil regions of Wisconsin map that we have in the book. I happen to have a little bigger one on the wall. We'll see if we can zoom in on that just a little bit. Again, a lot of the types of soils are divided in this line around glaciation here in this region. These are forested and prairie soils that have glacial parent material base. These are forested, and this western part of the state has forested and prairie soils that are more, the parent materials are going to be related to bedrock geology that's there. So the base of that will be quite different in texture, quite different in topography, of course, and quite different in some of the other resources. So this little fun with maps session, hopefully you had a... All right, well, that was just a little fun with maps for you, just to kind of by way of review of some of the things that you've been reading about in your books, in your reading assignments, to try to understand your soil resources a little bit and what we're going to get to as we move into doing a management scenarios with using SNAP Plus. SNAP Plus is a tool that is most people recognize as a nutrient management tool, but it's much more powerful than that. You can look at all kinds of your management strategies and how they affect not just the nutrient availability for cropping systems, but also how they affect erosion management, in particular water management and water resource management as well. We are going to get into that a little bit more. I know it said in the syllabus we'd get here by now, but it seems like I wanted to take just a little more time getting everybody at the same place and a basic understanding of soils before we get too far into that. But over the next week, we're going to dive into SNAP Plus with some of our examples. If you have your own data, by all means, load it in and work on a field for your own farms. We will work together on the Sauk County farm, which is a nice resource to have. But we'll be able to work together, work through some scenarios there. More on that later. And I'll be back again with some other videos shortly for you. Maybe it won't even feel shortly to